People love to praise games from 30 years ago until they actually play them. Nostalgia is powerful and its influence is clearly displayed by the amount of remakes being released. What about a game that stands the test of time? A game regarded as one of the best on the PlayStation. A game that popularized the stealth action genre and cinematic cutscenes. To many people, that game is Before I continue with the video, it's important to know I played the PlayStation 1 ROM using a PlayStation 3. There's no emulation enhancements, and there's no achievements like the modern ports. Let's get into this. The game has quite a varied structure for a PlayStation 1 game. There's moments the player will sneak around Shadow Moses, fight bosses, watch cutscenes, and play through action sequences. I love this format as it meant there's never a dull moment, except for the backtracking. The core of the game is sneaking until a reaction triggers the action phase. Snake runs around Shadow Moses dodging guards, cameras, landmines, and more. There's a puzzle element in discovering how to get past the aforementioned elements with as little friction as possible. Being discovered doesn't mean game over, it means the player has to eliminate the enemies nearby or hide somewhere until the alert phase cools down. This is where the limitations of this game are noticeable. The directional pad is used for movement, and that can feel imprecise or too slow. Sneaking and trying to choke enemies is extremely finicky, making it annoying to engage in stealth kills without the silenced pistol. Players can still be detected when choking an enemy, causing all enemies in the room to immediately triangulate the player position. This sucks as enemies across the room shouldn't be able to do this. Thankfully, if the player dies, the checkpoints are very consistent, so it doesn't feel that too much time was lost. Shooting feels frustrating as the player has to aim with the directional pad. In heightened moments, this can lead to Snake getting overwhelmed and stun-locked. Snake's auto-aiming isn't very accurate, and it incentivizes the player to get close to ensure their shots are accurate. This means that shooting is riskier than desired and detection is a grave consequence. Whether it's stealth or an action sequence, shooting is slow. The game has a first-person view button, but not first-person shooting. For someone playing in 2026, the gameplay can feel archaic, especially compared to Metal Gear Solid 2, which solved the limitations of shooting and movement. The sluggish shooting feels especially archaic when using the sniper rifle. Whilst rifles are slow to use in real life, it sucks to use in game. It's slow, and needing 3 bullets just to kill a basic enemy makes it feel lackluster. These are ultimately minor complaints, as the moments necessary to use guns are never more than a couple of minutes in a 10-hour playthrough. Even if the player doesn't enjoy shooting, there's an abundance of gadgets to use. There's puzzles prompting the player to use thermal and night vision goggles, mine detectors, as well as electronic grenades. Whilst they aren't explicitly puzzles, they are tiny speed bumps prompting the player to think about their arsenal. I quite liked this, as it provided a brief moment to reflect on what I collected and how I can approach these problems. The boss fights are easily the highlight of this game. Each boss has a memorable gimmick to beat them. Despite knowing about Psycho Mantis for years, I won't deny that it's still a cool fight. Revolver Ocelot still has one of the best introductions I've seen in a game. Whilst the boss fights are certainly engaging, there can be frustrations chasing them down. Snake's movements can feel sluggish, which can ruin the spectacle of the boss fights after he takes 3 business days to aim his gun. The premise of this game is completely absurd and I loved it. It's full of heartfelt moments sprinkled throughout the game. The dialogue is cheesy and reminiscent of an early 1990s spy thriller. I feel that the dialogue is heavy on the exposition, which can detract from the serious moments. There's a benefit to explaining everything to the player to ensure they understand the context behind geopolitical events, but at times it feels like I'm watching a Bloomberg video and not a spy thriller. The delivery of this story is more impressive than the story itself, in my opinion. Instead of cutscenes with text dialogue or full motion videos, the game delivers the story through in-game cutscenes with full voice acting. I don't know any game from this era that achieved this level of presentation. It presents an extremely engaging story, especially with the shifting camera work. I'm not a fan of games being cinematic, but the delivery of cutscenes in this game and the whole series is undeniably great. All of the characters are memorable. Ignoring their ridiculous names, the personal moments effectively flesh out motivations along with the plot. I feel that it's done well despite the cheesy expository dialogue. One of the issues with the story is that it does make callbacks to the previous Metal Gear games. The story does enough to explain what happened, but it can feel odd when the game references events from games not available on the PlayStation. The visuals of this game are simply iconic, and that's thanks to a strong art direction with designs by Yoji Shinkawa. The character designs are unforgettable, even though the models are basic 3D polygons with surface textures. The game utilizes a smoothing texture which smooths the pixelated textures. This is most notable during in-game cutscenes, where characters are the focus. The limitation of the visuals are clear. Due to the hardware limitations of the PlayStation 1, developers had to deal with the graphics transformation engine. The problem with calculating the Z-buffer using integers is that developers had to use sorting algorithms. Calculating object positions in both the world and camera space using whole numbers led to the jitteriness you can see on the screen. The Parkinson's rendering makes the game feel dated, but I don't blame the developers for this, since it was the hardware of the time. Animations during cutscenes and gameplay look a little silly. Characters aren't expressive and the movements are quite stiff. The solution is the codec calls, which use different textures for different emotions. This does mean a majority of storytelling is done through static images, but it's hard to argue against since the plot is delivered through calls. A major compliment I can give the game is the audio. The voice acting is perfect. Considering the cutscenes deliver lots of exposition through calls, you'd ideally want the characters to deliver the lines convincingly. The audio composition and sound design is another positive aspect. The soundtrack captures the sense of urgency, especially during the cutscenes and the action sequences. Unfortunately, some of the audio effects sound limited in regards to the fidelity. I'm not sure if this is due to the audio processing or the sound effects themselves. However, it can feel dated when listening to certain actions in-game. Metal Gear Solid is a certified classic, and I firmly believe it stands the test of time. It is limited by its controls, visuals, and graphics, but that is no fault of the developers. The PlayStation 1 was less advanced than competitors at the time, but that doesn't matter if developers could make better technical showcases. Metal Gear Solid is one of the best games on the PlayStation 1. If you've reached the end of this video, thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and don't forget to look out for the poll at the end of this video where you can vote on which game I review next.